We are back with you live once again on another Johnnie Torch live broadcast. Had a little technical difficulty there with the opening theme. I guess I had the sound off or something, but we are back with you once again on the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on the Johnnie Torch live program, coming to you live atop stately Torch Tower, usually every Saturday. We weren't here last week. I had a lot of stuff going on, so unfortunately we passed up the chance to spend time together, but you know, we make up for it today with an extra helping of goodness, good goodness. We are doing the show a little bit earlier. I had it set for 4 o'clock, but we're going to be fashionably early. Last week we were a little bit late, and we want to make sure we get to the show before the Preakness Stakes. I am curious to see how that's going to turn out. I don't have any wagers on the outcome, lest anyone think. But welcome into the show. We have broadcast number 244 today on a lovely, lovely spring afternoon. Very nice out there. That's another reason why I wanted to start a little earlier, because sometimes I take my afternoon constitutional before the program. But today I said, let's do the program first, and I'll take a walk later. So we will do the broadcast first. And we have Torch News Roundup number 201, which we have some pretty exciting things to talk about and some not so exciting things to talk about. But first, as always, I recommend you to the description below, where you will find the link to The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye, the all-ages action-adventure extravaganza, composed by yours truly, which is the finest Indy Comics has to offer. Maybe that's just my opinion, but I'm entitled to it. And we have a few preview pages up. The Family Jewels is the current issue. I should show you some pages here, but, you know, I'll just make the commercial here brief, but check out the link in the description below. I think you'll be pleased. We have an exciting setup. Bullets Bourbon taking on Carrot Top, who has returned to his family. His father is the Don of a powerful crime family, and they are after a very expensive statue, which has, you know, value going back past antiquity. And of course, we introduce Veronica, who is the femme fatale Carrot Top uses to lure our hero to the path of the dark side. Almost like the way Peter Lorre tried to lure Bugs Bunny with a wind-up rabbit. And remember how he was kind of successful with that? Well, Carrot Top is not going to be outdone by Peter Lorre. So he's going to try the same tactic. Hey, if it works, why not? All right. So also check out in the link in the description, we have the link to my Twitter page, where I get into way too much trouble. But you can always find out the latest ongoings there. I talk about the CW shows a little bit. I used to do that a lot more on YouTube. Don't do it as much. I'm still considering maybe doing a Batwoman sort of mega review, where we're going to take a look at like the last 3 or 4 episodes. Don't know when I'm going to get to that. I haven't really had a lot of time lately. My time comes in bursts. It comes and goes. Sometimes I'm free up with a lot of time. Other times I'm just too swamped with things going on. Also, I'm working on the book. I'm trying to take a lot of time on the book. I spent over a week on this most recent page. I think I might have talked about this last week, but the page has to do with cars, and that's always kind of cumbersome for me. So I took a little more time trying to color and, you know, fix up and edit and clean up some of the pages and stuff. So these next couple of pages that involve, I don't want to say a car chase per se, but something like that. It's taking a little more time than usual. And again, this book, I feel like it should have been out by now, but a lot of technical issues have come up. I'm having problems with losing some work because I'm not saving it properly. And just the overall nature of me having to fix up the art, because the inking didn't show up too well when I got it printed, you know, and reduced. You know, I'm sure you're not interested in all this stuff, but that's kind of the behind the scenes of a cartoonist. the life of a cartoonist. You have to be on the ball with these things. Of course, there's a lot of dialogue that I have to work on, see if I can, reduce the size of the dialogue a little bit, make sure it fits on the panel. That's been kind of cumbersome this time. So it's a pretty big chore, this issue, but it's going to be worth it. The color scheme is, again, second to none. I put a lot of effort into the color scheme. I keep going back and tweaking it. That's another problem. That's another reason why usually when I have a page in the books, I put it aside, don't really look at it again until the end of the process. But in this case, I keep referring back, trying to make it better. And again, I'm not really a perfectionist per se, but I kind of am. If I think I can do it better, I'm going to try to do it better. And I feel like I owe it to my readers to make sure that it's the best it can possibly be. So if you are waiting for the book, please know that I'm doing my best to make it worth your while and money. But again, some bad news with the Plastic City Comic-Con being postponed again for another year. It's understandable with the situation in Massachusetts. We live under a tyrant and the governor. That was completely expected. So that has been knocked off my itinerary for July. As far as I know, the Granite State Con is still up in September. I shall endeavor to be there if that still goes on without a hitch. I'm looking into possibly doing some more flea market appearances like I did last year. Consider doing it today, but I'm going to hold off for a week or two and see what's going on, and maybe you'll find me at a few of those flea market appearances again. I haven't gotten the family jewels into too many hands yet because I've not been able to do any appearances since last year's flea market appearances. Over the course of the winter, of course, kind of tough to do an outdoor flea market. So maybe we will be announcing that in the near future. So again, I recommend you check out my Twitter page for those kind of announcements, or the website as we have below. You can find either of them there. And before we get on with the show proper, there is one more order of business I have to attend, and that is, as usual, we have a mailbag segment. And these are the nice people that have written letters to me. Well, they used to call them letters. I guess now we call them comments, posts, texts, emails, whatever. We've got a couple on my ever-popular Wonder Woman retrospective of the Linda Carter series. The first one I got was from Shamrock Particle, who says, "Nice review, and makes me want to see the third season again. If you'll indulge this question, what was your opinion of Galt's brain? Thank you." I replied with, I haven't seen that one in quite a while, which is true. The last time I did a complete sit-through of the whole Wonder Woman Linda Carter series was when I did the video, which is, 3 years ago now? I'm not sure. I got to look it up. But yeah, as I wrote it back. I wrote back to him. Sometimes I'll just answer the questions on the live show, but in this case, I thought maybe it was better to just, because it's a popular video, just write back to him. But this is what I said. I haven't seen that one in quite a while, but you've got me curious to check it out again. One thing that was great about the series is that they still managed to do those pulp-style stories now and again. If you don't know what Galt's brain was, it was a brain in a jar, and the owner of the brain, I guess, the brain and the person that the brain belonged to wanted to sort of transplant his consciousness to a hunky athlete guy or something. And again, that kind of goes back to sort of the pulps of the 30s and stuff, that kind of mad scientist stuff. Sounds, enjoyable. I don't remember it too well, to be honest with you. There were a few other episodes in the Wonder Woman review there, the retrospective, that didn't quite make the cut, but I did like a lot. I'm trying to think which ones almost made the cut. There was a couple of them. I think the third season was the toughest to try to figure out which ones I liked the most, because they were kind of all over the place. They were kind of inventive, trying to do different things. You had Wolfman Jack in one episode. But thank you for the comment, Shamrock Particle. Domingo Gomez also chimed in here and said, that episode was interesting, the second time for Wonder Woman's enemy with telekinesis. And let's see. Domingo also had his own comment here and question. Now, this is an interesting question because this is something I was talking about at the time of making the video, whether I would include sort of hearsay and, you know, sort of the rumor that was going on about the back story, the behind the scenes, I guess I should say, of the Wonder Woman Linda Carter series. So he asks, I love this show with Linda Carter, and ever I have wanted to know what happened with Lyle Wagner, why he left the show slowly, some kind of problem between Linda Carter and him. Now, again, I, at the time, wasn't sure if I really wanted to cover sort of the hearsay. I looked at the behind the scenes, and there really wasn't a lot set in stone. There wasn't really a lot of trash talk going on, but there was some kind of hints, let's say. And this is what I wrote back. Let's see. As I just explained, I said to him at the time of my making this video, I really didn't want to delve too deeply into hearsay behind the supposed issues between Carter and Wagner. Not sure if that was for the best in retrospect, because, as I just said, the question keeps coming up, and I kind of posed it in the video, hoping that maybe, you know, people will draw their own conclusions. The little I read from behind-the-scenes sources suggests that Linda was kind of a diva. She wanted less focus on side characters like Trevor. It would also explain why Wonder Girl never returned after season 1, and have more focus on Diana. From what I understand, Lyle wasn't crazy about his reduced role, but more or less took it in stride. And as I said, I think the intention was to write him out entirely after the 3rd season, when they were going to make a move to, I think, LA, if I remember correctly, or San Francisco, something like that. The show was going to move its location, which would have probably completely left Lyle Wagner in the dust. And again, I didn't really want to say, you know, it kind of takes the shine off the rose or whatever when you have to explain that there are sort of petty human conflicts behind the scenes. And, you know, I think Linda Carter kind of just wanted the spotlight. The show was called Wonder Woman. She didn't want to have a romance. She didn't want to have a sidekick, so to speak. And I don't fault her for that at all. And I'll tell you why. Because this was something that happened a lot back in those days. You got to remember, this is circa the late 70s. 70s and 80s television, it had a lot more sway. Like, for instance, in MacGyver, Richard Dean Anderson, of course, playing MacGyver to perfection. And there was a character called Nikki Carpenter, which I personally liked a lot. Alyssa Davos, I believe was her name, the actress. Beautiful girl. And I was disappointed when she was written off. But why was she written off? Because Richard Dean Anderson said, I don't like the way this is going. I don't like the direction they're putting MacGyver in, or he's going to wind up with a love interest. And he essentially had her taken off the show. And it's just because that was the kind of character MacGyver was. Now, it's a little bit different with Wonder Woman. In the comics, you know, Steve Trevor means more to Wonder Woman than sort of just being the platonic friend, you know, removed somewhat from, you know, them being close. But I can kind of understand it's kind of what you did back then. Another example is George Peppard on the A-Team. Amy, I forget what her name is. You know, Amy, the woman from the first season. I forget the actress's name. And they actually replaced her in the second season when she was fired, the first actress, with, again, I didn't prepare any of this. This is just off the top of my head, so I don't remember these actresses' names. But the second actress came in to sort of fulfill the script obligations of a female character for the scripts already written for season 2 when the first actress was fired. And George Peppard came right out and said, look, we don't want you in this show. We respect you. We admire you as an actress, but we don't need you here. This is a guy's show. This is sort of a boy band, and we really don't feel that there's a place for you. And back then, of course, like I said, the leading actor, the star of the show, held that kind of sway. And as I said, the first actress was fired after the first season, and the second actress was sort of more gracefully written out. And that's kind of what happened. So again, I don't say these things to sort of say, well, Linda Carter was a horrible person or something like that. No, not at all. It's kind of diva behavior, but then again, so it was also for Richard Dean Anderson, so it was for George Papard. So I'm not saying this to sort of, and that's why I didn't put this kind of stuff in the Wonder Woman retrospective, because I didn't really want to spend time trying to explain that I wasn't putting down Linda Carter, or would I any of these other actors when and if I hopefully do some retrospectives on these shows. So thank you. Well, he also responds to that. He says, "Thank you very much for the answer. You are very kind. I'm sorry all that could be truth behind all the magic and wonder that was the show, but I love her, and forever I keep the sweet image of her face, blue eyes, dark hair, and gorgeous smile. Linda Carter is and always will be my Wonder Woman." To which I said, "Same here." So thank you, Domingo Gomez, for your comments. And if you want me to address any comments you make on any of my videos, be sure to comment below, or I'll have the chat open here during the live stream so that you can comment during the show, as we've been getting comments a little more recently on the show while it's live. So thank you for those. All right, so let us move on now to the subject proper. Let's see, the Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage trailer dropped. And silly me, in my haste to get the show going here, I forgot to watch the video again. I usually watch the trailers again to just sort of freshen my mind. But I watched the trailer a couple of times. The first time it came out about, 3 days ago? And I was very impressed. I like the way it looks. It looks like they're going to continue on the sort of quirky style that they did in the first movie, with Eddie sort of having a odd couple relationship with the symbiote. And, there's some goofy comedy. I don't know if folks are going to be turned off to sort of that broad comedy. I mean, you have, it's kind of weird. You have like Venom shooting his tendricles, or whatever you want to say, out of Eddie's back, and he's making breakfast or something with him or for him. It's like crazy stuff. But I mean, again, you kind of have to accept that this is not like Spider-Man Venom. This is like Venom his own thing. So in a sense, this, I don't know if someday they're going to tie this into a Spider-Man, be it Tom Holland's, or maybe just, I don't know. There's been some rumors that possibly it's going to be tied into the Sam Raimi one, which of course would be difficult because there already was an Eddie Brock / Venom in Spider-Man 3. So kind of hard to see that maybe if they do bring Spider-Man into the film series, it would be Tobey Maguire. I wouldn't be against it, but of course you have all kinds of outs when you have things like the Multiverse of Madness, or whatever that movie's called, Doctor Strange 2, where all kinds of things are going to be let loose. And of course the rumor abounds that it's going to involve Tobey Maguire, it's going to involve Andrew Garfield, even though, as far as I know, Tobey has kept mum about the whole thing, and Andrew and Tom Holland have said that there is no other Spider-Man but the MCU Spider-Man. So your guess is as good as mine. But again, yeah, like I said, it looks like a proper sequel. It looks like they haven't forgotten what got them there, which is good. You know what I mean? Remember what was good about the first movie, and then just extrapolate on it. That's kind of what you do. And Carnage looks great. This is the best image I could get of Carnage out of the trailer. It looks very Carnage-y. We've got Michelle Williams back. We've seen her briefly in the, it's kind of strange because I think we left her, she's not technically the love interest, because we left her, I think, with her boyfriend at the time in the first movie. And believe it or not, I mean, it seems like Venom, the first movie, was like nothing special, but it is very rewatchable. I noticed that. I mean, I feel like it's just a fun movie, you know what I mean? You don't have to worry about continuity. You don't have to worry. It's sort of just like, watch Tom Hardy do his thing, and it's just fun, you know what I mean? I kind of feel the vibe is the same with this here. I don't think this is going to lead to some huge world building. I don't think this is going to lead to huge crossovers. But it's just, we finally are going to see Carnage and Venom obviously is going to be taken to task to, take apart his spawn, so to speak. All right, so let me see. The little bit of copy that I got here under this is Sony Pictures Venom will go head-to-head with his arch nemesis Carnage. The first movie proved to be highly divisive, but many fans are likely to give Let There Be Carnage a chance just to witness the long-awaited battle on the big screen. Michelle Williams and Reed Scott are set to reprise their roles from Venom and will be joined by Naomi Harris as the villainous Shriek, Stephen Graham as an unnamed cop who was glimpsed in the trailer reading the Daily Bugle. I know that guy got a lot of screen time considering that they didn't even name him. I didn't know who he was supposed to be, unless, of course, this is some kind of surprise, like it's a character from the actual comics. I don't know. Sean Delaney, Lawrence Spellman, and Larry Olbamio are also on board in undisclosed roles. Of course, Woody Harrelson portraying Cletus Cassidy, who is the host to Carnage. And of course, he looks great in this film as well. Woody Harrelson, it's kind of like that's his wheelhouse, right? He can play these kind of like unhinged characters that you just don't know. So again, I'm all up for it. Of all the films that are out this year, I would probably say I'm looking forward to this one the most. What else is out this year? I mean, there's Black Widow, which I'm looking forward to in a sense because I want to see Black Widow finally get her big screen solo film. How well that's really going to satisfy fans, I don't know. Probably not much. Shang-Chi is going to be a curiosity. I'm curious, and after seeing the trailer to that, hopefully optimistic. So I'm not really down on that one. Eternals, I have no interest in whatsoever. Honestly, I wasn't interested in the comic. The little I've seen of it, in the little glimpses and sneak peeks, I'm not interested now. There's the Snake Eyes movie, which we're going to be talking about. Suicide Squad 2, if you will, that we're going to be talking about. Neither of them really, we'll be talking about them in a minute, so we'll get into that further. So I would say probably Venom is the film. Venom 2 is the film I'm most anticipating this year seeing. So hopefully it doesn't disappoint. Let me know what you think about your thoughts on Carnage. How does Carnage look? How do you think the film is shaping up? Are you looking forward to seeing it in theaters? Are you going to... You can't see it anywhere else, right? Yeah, it's in theaters only. So that's kind of the way things are going to be now. Hopefully we're getting back to normal. That's pretty much all we can hope for. All right, so next up, our next story here. This is kind of slow today. I don't know. I can't get these images up as quickly as I would like. Indiana Jones 5 has done some more casting. We've got some casting news here for Indy 5. Following Lucasfilm's recent announcements that Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Thomas Kretschmann, and Mads Mikkelsen will be joining Harrison Ford and James Mangold's upcoming Indiana Jones movie, we have word on 2 more key cast members. According to Deadline, Shawnette Renee Wilson and Boyd Holbrook will both be joining the intrepid archaeologist on his latest adventure. No details on their roles were provided, and the plot of this 5th installment is also under wraps. Holbrook will be best known for his villainous turn in Logan. He's also appeared in the likes of The Predator and Narcos. More recently, he donned a cape for Netflix's We Can Be Heroes. Wilson, meanwhile, was a fixture on Fox's Resident. Before departing the show after its 4th season, she also appeared as one of the Dora Milaje in Black Panther. Logan director James Mangold is taking the helm, and it's been confirmed that John Williams will return as composer to score the film. Kathleen Kennedy, Steven Spielberg, Frank Marshall, and Simon Emanuel will serve as producers. The still untitled Indiana Jones 5 will be coming to theaters July 29th, 2022. So what do I think about this casting? Oh, what is there to say, really? Boyd is pretty good. I thought he was good in Logan. You would kind of think he would play the heavy, I guess. Mads Mikkelsen, I would imagine Mads Mikkelsen has to be the villain of the piece. Holbrook probably is the henchman, sort of the Dietrich, I guess, if you will, to Mads Belloc, maybe something to that effect. I kind of hope we're still going to get a beatdown scene with Indiana Jones fighting someone twice his size, but that could be Holbrook as well. I don't know. As far as what's the other lady's name? The other lady, excuse me, the lady's name, Shawnette. I don't know. It's sort of a prerequisite now that we have to have the female black leading lady, sort of. I mean, I imagine she's going to be his sidekick in this. Indiana Jones, of course, his sidekick. So it kind of takes the fun out of trying to guess who these characters, who these actors are going to play. I imagine she's going to have to be heroic, so she's probably going to be one of the sidekicks, side characters. And of course, it's difficult when you have Phoebe Waller-Bridge also, which is sort of been suggested as being the main co-star, that this is going to really just turn out to be woke as all get out. Oh, man. I hope I'm wrong, but, again, it's also difficult, too, because Indiana Jones, it just feels to me like when you start, you're getting further and further away now from the glory days of, like, the pulp 30s, and you're starting to get now into the 60s, and I really don't see Indiana Jones existing into the 60s that well. I think that's kind of where we're headed, but the 50s were like the last gasp. We were still like hokey enough to be able to play with the Indiana Jones universe in the 50s. You get past the 50s and into the 60s, and there's sort of an innocence that's gone that I don't know that Indiana Jones can exist. Maybe it'll work for a James Bond, but of course, Indiana Jones was cut from a clearly different swath, so to speak. Maybe that's just my opinion, but let me know what you think in the comments below about Indiana Jones 5. What do you think the name is going to be? Indiana Jones 5 and the something of something else. All right, next up, we've got some news here on Nelly. Yeah, it's a little bit slower, but the Suicide Squad also in the news. The Suicide Squad, of course, is the sequel to Suicide Squad, a very creative title for the sequel. That's almost as clever as Batman being followed up with Batman Returns. I mean, to me, that was a stunner when I was a kid. I was like, wow, they're calling it Batman Returns, not Batman 2, but basically it means the same thing, so I don't know. All right, the Suicide Squad has been rated R, and this has been the designation explained for the rating. Rated R for strong violence and gore, language throughout, some sexual references, drug use, and brief graphic nudity. So apparently, as expected, the Suicide Squad is given a hard R under the tutelage of James Gunn. And you've all heard me complain about this before. I really don't see the point in going over this ad nauseum, but these comic book films should be accessible to children. Harley Quinn was created in a children's show. I mean, that's what the great thing about Batman the Animated Series was they were sophisticated enough to make the show so appealing to adults, but it's very difficult to try to squash a concept that was easily fitting into a children's show and put them front and center of an R-rated film. Now, of course, as a public service, I do have to point out, they say that brief graphic nudity is involved. I'll be willing to bet you both hands that has nothing to do with Margot Robbie. Let me put everybody's mind to rest right now. Don't get too excited. Whenever they say that, it's always a dude. It's always going to be a guy whenever there's nudity in any of these things, because the dreaded male gaze will not allow for any female nudity in any of these comic book projects in this day and age, at least. And again, I don't want to see graphic nudity in any superhero film, any comic book project. It's probably going to have to do with one of the animal characters. What's the guy's name? The Weasel or King Shark or something? I don't know. But that's probably what it is. All right, so again, disappointed. I knew it was coming. This doesn't sound like... See, the thing is this is going to be a hard R, which is a tougher sell for me completely, because with Birds of Prey, now that was rated R2, and I was upset about that. But honestly, you took out 74 of the 75 F-bombs and maybe tidy up one or two of the action scenes that got a little more violent than the typical PG-13. And you honestly had a PG-13 rated movie. It really wasn't anything that they couldn't fix to show on cable. You can get away with a lot on cable now, too, so maybe that's the wrong analogy. But basically, you could watch it with your grandmother if you could just censor a bunch of F-bombs and maybe tone down a little of the violence. In this case, they're probably not going to be able to show this on television. Or if they do, like I said, it's because the rulings are so lax now in the censorship of whatever goes out on cable TV. But that's what I mean. I can't. I mean, I could hang with Birds of Prey. I could hang with Logan. I could hang with Joker, because at the heart of it, it's just one or two violent scenes and then a couple of swear words that you don't hear every day on television. In this case, I think this is going to be a lot more potent, which is going to make it a lot more of a turnoff to me to see this one. It sounds to me like they're going for a lot of gore. They're going for a lot of violence. Of course, the language is going to be vulgar. We already heard some of it in the Red Band trailer. So again, very disappointed, particularly in back-to-back films, right? I mean, we had the Joker rated R. We had Birds of Prey rated R, and we have now the Suicide Squad rated R. What was the last PG-13 film we had? Shazam? I think that came out even before Joker. So like I said, we're basically getting 3 R-rated, and you could even throw in the Justice League Snyder cut, which is also R-rated. And we're taking away the comic book properties from the kids. That's basically what we're doing. That's all we're accomplishing here. We're not doing anything hip. We're not doing anything progressive. We're basically just ruining it for the next generation. We're making it so they can't watch, or if they do watch. I mean, it was different when I was a kid, when, you're kids and you see like Rambo on TV or RoboCop or something, It was kind of a different, it was a more innocent time, I think. It wasn't about like vulgarity and stuff. You've seen a little extra violence than you should have. Usually it was because your parents thought you were ready to handle it. But in this case, it's sort of like we're just going way beyond what kids can handle. So anyway, need I belabor the point? But we also got some stuff to talk about here with Margot Robbie's been doing some interviews or what have you, and the subject has come up about the future of Harley Quinn, where she's going after the Suicide Squad. And of course, remember, supposedly James Gunn has been saying that nobody's off the table in the Suicide Squad for death. And he's not even Harley Quinn. He's been saying, and of course, we've got a Peacemaker TV show coming out with John Cena starring in it. So any of these projects going forward that have to do with the Peacemaker or Harley Quinn could be prequels, could be things that happened before their deaths in the Suicide Squad. I personally think it's safe to say that Harley Quinn will not die. That's one of the few bright spots of the DCEU. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. Wonder Woman came out. Wonder Woman 84 came out. That was PG-13. I wonder why I forgot about that. That kind of fell flat with everybody. I watched it again, honestly, for the first time since the theater, and I was a little more accepting of it than I was the first time, and I was kind of accepting of it the first time. So I don't know. It just feels like kind of an inconsequential entry into the DCEU, I suppose. All right, so Margot Robbie said, let's see, about the future of Harley Quinn And will there be a Birds of Prey 2? I don't know if that is on the horizon anytime soon, Margot Robbie told Den of Geek regarding the Birds of Prey sequel. I don't think it's a no, but no, there's no sequel in the works that I'm aware of at this stage. She added, I'm glad that you loved the film. It was very fun to make. And please, I don't really want to see another Birds of Prey film. I would rather see Harley Quinn do a film by herself, or do a film with the Joker, or do a film that has to do with Batman. We don't need that Birds of Prey to come back because it was Birds of Prey in name only. Everybody in that film was horribly chosen, really. Except for, of course, Margot Robbie, who was just put in there, I think, for the bankability of the character, to sort of elevate that, social justice experiment. After appearing in Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn will next make her presence felt in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. However, it seems Robbie is already having discussions with Warner Brothers about where to take the character next. Robbie told Den of Geek, trust me, I chew their ear off about it all the time. They must be sick of hearing it, but I'm like, Poison Ivy, come on, let's do it. I'm very keen to see a Harley Poison Ivy relationship on screen. It'd be so fun. So I'll keep pestering them, don't worry. And again, this is another thing that's kind of suspect to me, because we really haven't gotten a proper Harley and Joker movie. And then when they had her break up with the Joker, they kind of completely... They didn't even have the Joker on screen, so that breakup was completely nerfed, and there was no teeth to it at all. It's just she's breaking up with the Joker, and she's upset with the Joker. We really didn't see the Joker mistreat her. We don't. There's a lot of backstory that still needs to be dealt with Harley and the Joker. They started off okay, I thought, in Suicide Squad. I mean, it was an okay start. That's what I always go back to. I've said it before about Green Lantern. The Green Lantern film with Ryan Reynolds didn't get off to the best start, but the idea is to build on that and make it better. It's the Wrath of Khan idea. Star Trek the Motion Picture wasn't great, but we laid the groundwork. All the pieces were there. We understand everybody got back together, where they've been, what they're doing. All right, they're together. Now we do something better. And we can go straight into the Wrath of Khan. If we had to we'd have to probably spend a few more scenes in Wrath of Khan setting it up. But we already did it, and so that's fine. We can go straight into the Wrath of Khan. The same thing could have happened with Green Lantern. We could have went straight into the Sinestro Wars and all this and all that. Instead, they just took it back to basics. Same thing could happen here, though. If instead of going a complete 180 and just dropping the ball on the Joker, they should have just built on that and tried to do something a little more comic-centric, a little more comic-oriented, instead of just completely dropping the Joker and now going straight to Poison Ivy. And again, it's going to be very SJW, because, again, when we started with Harley in the Batman the Animated Series, it was sort of like they were pals and buddies, because they couldn't suggest anything too provocative for children's television, particularly in the 90s. And, of course, that's going to go by the wayside if they ever do a Harley and Poison Ivy film. It's going to be this lesbian story. And again, I've never viewed either of these characters particularly as lesbians, or really even bi. Harley's only always had eyes for the Joker. That really shouldn't change. Then, of course, Poison Ivy is sort of this, man magnet. She's a man-eater and so on and so forth. That's kind of the gimmick for her character. And there really isn't really a lot to play with trying to force these characters to be lesbian, which... Again, that's probably what's going to happen in a Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn film. And I suppose it would probably be rated R again. So, again, I don't really know. I had high hopes for this character as played by Margot Robbie going forward, because I thought, her ties to the Batman the Animated Series will surely carry over into the films, and they'll surely focus more on the Joker. Give us a Joker that's a little more in line with the Mark Hamill version, which, of course, is the best version. Hopefully give us more of a Kevin Conroy-style Batman, because as you could see in the original Suicide Squad, the Ben Affleck Batman is toned down a little bit. I mean, I think the Zack Snyder Batman would have gunned down dead shot in front of his daughter, but thankfully they started toning him down at least a little bit there. So anyway, it kind of is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comments below going forward about Suicide Squad and the Suicide Squad, excuse me, and the future of Harley Quinn in the DCEU. All right, next up, let's talk about that G.I. Joe spinoff, Snake Eyes. They released a few images. Again, I'm kind of torn with this one. On the one hand, I'm dying to see some more G.I. Joe. That is really the only, I would say, apart from the Masters of the Universe movie in 1987, the only toy company, you know, that made movies that I ever cared about was G.I. Joe. I saw both of them in theaters, The Rise of Cobra and Retaliation, respectively. And both of them had strengths and weaknesses. I liked both of them to different extents. I didn't really like that they killed off Duke. I really didn't like that they pretty much scrubbed the whole cast of the first film in the second. But I liked, you know, The Rock, obviously, is a big box office draw. He's great. And so is, I liked the focus on Lady J and some of the other characters that didn't make it to the first movie. I kind of don't mind if they're going to reboot the franchise, if they can kind of try to tie it together, get a little closer to the feel of the original animated series, but even the Larry Hama issues of the comics that came out in the early 80s. And of course, it doesn't look like it's going to happen with Snake Eyes because they're revamping the character. They're going to tell you everything you need to know about Snake Eyes, about his origin, where he comes from, even if that knowledge wasn't necessary. That's kind of what they fought for. I remember the director of the original G.I. Joe film saying that the producers or whatever were just adamant that they have Snake Eyes take off his helmet. That is a big no-no in G.I. Joe lore, and it looks like they have broken the law on that one. Speaking with Entertainment Weekly as part of their massive Snake Eyes First Look feature, producer Lorenzo Di Bonaventura revealed there have been some scripts that are in development currently. He's talking about I should have prefaced this, that we're going to talk about this, but they're talking about a sequel to G.I. Joe Retaliation, that there are scripts written as a sequel to Retaliation, which came out, like, what is it, 10 years ago now? I'm not sure. There have been some scripts that are in development currently. The truth of the matter is it could have gone first if we'd gotten a good script, but we struggled. While we struggled, in came a really good Snake Eyes script. Before deciding to move forward with Snake Eyes, the studio also considered a potential spin-off centered on the Baroness, but it doesn't sound like it gained much traction. There's also the possibility that some supporting characters could be headed to the small screen, as it was recently reported that a Lady J series is in the works over at Amazon Prime. As for a timeline, Bonaventura stresses, you want to get it right. How fast? There's always a question, but no, there's absolutely a commitment from Paramount to get another Joe up and running. So, at least there's good news there. I suppose I'd rather they keep it as a sequel, but then again, they've scrubbed so many of the characters. I think, how many characters of G.I. Joe have been killed off already? Like I said, there's Duke. They showed Scarlet the door unceremoniously. And, of course, Ray Park was Snake Eyes. I don't know, they're going to get him back. I think they killed Zartan, who I thought was miscast in the first place with that guy. They never did the Dreadnoughts and whatever. So I don't really know where they go with a sequel. Maybe a reboot might be a better plan, but the problem is with that, like I said, now they're just completely destroying the mystique of Snake Eyes with showing him in his origin and everything, which they already did show his origin in the first G.I. Joe movie, so there's that. All right, and so for our final story of the day, our feature story, let's take a look at that Masters of the Universe Netflix series that has been proposed and written by Kevin Smith. All right, so we'll do the positives first. How does that sound? Can we talk positives first here? I like this animation style a lot. Now, this reminds me, I think this is probably the same animation studio that did Voltron. Now, Netflix butchered Voltron with a trans Pidge, and Allura is some kind of elfin creature. They ruined it. They completely ruined Voltron. So then in comes She-Ra. And She-Ra looked like a 12-year-old boy with long hair. And again, why would I trust Netflix to do right by He-Man? Well, we have Kevin Smith doing the story writing, and again, I'm not a huge Kevin Smith fan, so that doesn't really hold a lot of weight with me. I mean, I've got nothing against him personally, but if we're talking about his comic book stuff, honestly, none of it has ever grabbed me. The style, the art style here is very good. I think it's a little too exaggerated. We've got the musculature on He-Man looking like, just way too much. The guy's a beast. All right, we can let that go. That's a little bit overemphasized. And let's take a look at a few more. Let's see, we got Battle Cat again, looking in his typical splendor there. He-Man looking like he's in the palace. Some good images. And let's see. All right, next up. Let's see. All right, Teela. And this is where we're going to start having our problems, okay? This is where we'll talk about the sadly negative reaction that I and many others have gotten with this. You can tell very clearly off the bat here they've done some changes to the character just to make sure that it'll fly. Now, the style don't look too bad. She still looks kind of mean, not very feminine, but let's see. We've already had the complete cleavage covered up from the original artwork, which I'll show you in a second here, but I'll point these things out to you first. This is the complete remodeling of the front here. Then, of course, you could see in the back here, they had to give her a battle skirt. They enlarged this kind of ornamental, skirt piece, and they had to make this big flap in the back because, of course, we can't have Teela having the booty shorts in 2021. There's that dreaded male gaze again. We can't have our prepubescent boys growing up to be heterosexual now, can we? And I wouldn't get too excited because this is apparently going to be the flashback scene. This is probably how the show opens up. They're going to start because this is supposed to be a legitimate sequel. It's not a soft reboot. They're not planning to widely deviate from the original source, the original Filmation show. But this is most likely a flashback, which is going to lead into we'll talk about the storyline in a moment, but the dreaded, 10 years later motif, which they're going to be doing. All right, so there's Teela, the way she's going to look now. Now, let's take a look first before we get to the rest of it, what Teela looked like before in Filmation. Now, as you can see here, this is the Filmation version of Teela. We're allowed to have some cleavage. It's not gross and yucky. Remember, this was a show watched by 7- and 8-year-old little boys. This was not anything that was going to scar them for life. We had the armor, sort of the breastplate type armor here, accentuating her, her feminine figure. We didn't have no huge sort of girdle or anything here. And as I said, the ornamental sort of decorative skirt or whatever you want to call it is just a very mini small thing here. And of course, they were famous for showing Teela from the back in the booty shorts. And again, this was nothing that was going to completely destroy the psyche of a young child. Standards and practices would have done something if this was very harmful to the 80-year-old child, which is, I think, why us Generation Xers are a lot more understanding of the nonsense that goes on today with these needless changes. I mean, all of us grew up watching Tila in the He-Man show. None of us became some kind of depraved fiends. You know what I mean? I don't understand what is gathered, or or what is what good has been made by trying to completely masculinize the female characters. Now, what am I talking about? I'll show you right now. This is apparently what they're going to do with Tila for the rest of the episodes. It's only a I believe, 6-part story. I don't know if that's an hour show or not. This is the way Tila is going to look going forward. Now, of course, we've got the butch lesbian haircut. This is the typical haircut now that we try to give the lesbians when they're not obese and they don't shave their heads. Basically, they just take the one side of the hair, flap it over, cut it, and then possibly shave the other side. We've got the huge abs on Tila, where she's not feminine looking anymore. Her face could quite honestly be a man if you didn't know any better. If I told you this was a guy, you probably would just think he was maybe slightly effeminate, but it looks like a guy. We have this umpire's vest. I don't know what the heck is that. What the hell is that? An umpire's vest? This better be part of the story. I mean, come on. Is she expecting to handle grenades or something? Completely masculizing her. I don't understand what the heck this is supposed to be. And of course, we got the cocky cargo shorts here, which quite probably would be pants. I think they're probably going to make her wear pants all the way down because, heaven knows that, if we see a female bare leg, it is somehow also going to be this horrible male gaze that is going to, cause every man in the world to hit a woman over the head with a club and drag her off like a caveman or something. I don't know. And let's look over here to Eva Lynn, who, of course, was never particularly one of my favorites. I mean, looks-wise, she was kind of out there. Pale yellow skin and, like, white hair. She wasn't really supposed to be that attractive, but she definitely looks trans here with the, again, large, muscular arms. Kind of overly made up, as if we're trying to sell you on the fact that she really is a woman. And I don't know. Then we got the prerequisite sidekick character that they had to create to have a black woman in the show, because apparently you have to have a black woman in a show. I think it's more of a rule in the movies. In the movies, you have to have a black woman. On TV, you have to have an Asian woman. For some reason, that's kind of where the representation ball has bounced lately. And I think this is a new character, unless they have race changed an old character, but Masters of the Universe weren't known for a ton of female characters, so I'm guessing this is just a new character, which is fine. That's the way you do it if you're going to add diversity to a series. Create a new character. So if this is, in fact, a new character, I applaud them. But again, this is probably going to be Tila's girlfriend. I don't trust these people. I don't put anything past them. It doesn't matter that this is a sequel to Masters of the Universe. They could have Tila finally realizing her lifetime struggle and come out the way they did with Alex and Supergirl after being supposedly straight for 28 years or whatever. They could very easily do the same thing here, and I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. Roboto comes off probably the least scathed of this bunch. He's got some kind of a poncho or something. Orko gets a remake as well here. I'm not thrilled with Orko's remake, but I'm getting the sense that, as I've always said, the problem with Orko, I think, is he's the Jar Jar of the Masters of the Universe lore. He's going to be probably toughened up, and I think that's against the character's nature. He's supposed to be sort of, well, like I said, he's like Jar Jar. He's an eager, somewhat over-eager helper for He-Man in sort of that mythical way that George Lucas played with a lot, that you have that character who is undervalued by society, but the hero by his, magnanimous attitude toward even the most insignificant of creatures, gains something from being friends with this character. And I don't know if they're going to lose that with making him either too tough or too jaded or whatever they're going to do. The ears are a little bit longer. They gave him these googly eyes to make him a little more, I don't know, Jawa-like, maybe? I don't know. Again, I'm not really feeling it with Orko. But again, this is what we're looking at. This is what the future is for pretty much everything now. We've got complete retooled, gender changed appearances of all these female characters. They all have to look generic. They all have to look unisex. For lack of a better term, I think they're unisex. At least Tila. And I don't know. I was going to give this show a chance, quite honestly. I was going to. I don't know anymore. Between the look of this, which is not promising, and the fact that I don't trust Netflix to begin with. And let's talk about the story. Now, I'm going to read the copy here. Let me see. This is the copy I got. Let's see. Kevin Smith says, we get to see them emerge, not just in clashing swords, but in far deeper conversations than we've ever seen them before. Well, that's obvious because Kevin Smith, at his heart, he's a conversationalist writer. That's, we're going to have these long dialogue scenes probably between Man-at-Arms and, Roboto or something on the nature of, wisdom or whatever. I don't know. It's not just simply like these two dudes, He-Man and Skeletor, have been trying to beat each other up for decades. We get to tell stories of abuse. We get to kind of tell stories of isolation, grief. We use these characters as long as they've been around, and most people consider them toys or action figures, to tell insanely human stories set in a very inhuman world. Again, I don't know about this approach. I mean, this kind of ties into what I've been saying about you have to remember these things are children's properties first. You know what I'm saying? You can't just completely take the child, outlook out of these things. We can't make them completely. They should be timeless. You know what I mean? They should be all ages, just like Star Wars in the classic sense was, where you have greater truths that you learn from watching these great morality stories play out. That's why in the original He-Man, they always had the moral of the story. Because as a kid, you really didn't realize it too much, but they were trying to teach you something. And at the end of the episode, somebody would step out and say, well, kids, just the way He-Man did that today, that's kind of the way we should all treat each other. And, that kind of stuff. That's fine. But again, I don't really want to hear, Beast Man has been abused all his life by Skeletor, and now he's in a 12-step program, and he's taking his life back by the bootstrap. You know what I mean? Beast Man was supposed to be a funny character. He's like a goof, and, he kind of wants to curry favor with Skeletor, but, you didn't really feel bad for him that he was being abused. You know what I mean? Skeletor treated everybody bad, and then you kind of also have to remember that Skeletor wasn't grim. You know what I mean? I can understand wanting to play him that way a little bit because Frank Langella was so good in that movie. He was the highlight of that movie, of course, and he did play him very straight. There wasn't really any, there was really no humor to his character. Before I go on and read the other article, let me see what it says here. Liam Cunningham is Man-at-Arms. Let's see. Oh, I got to read the original. Let's see, the original cast here. Mark Hamill as Skeletor, Lena Headey as Evil Lynn, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Tila, Alicia Silverstone as Queen Marlena, Kevin Conroy as Merman. Skeletor's original voice actor, Alan Oppenheimer, takes the role of Mossman. Liam Cunningham as Man-at-Arms. Griffin Newman as Orko, Stephen Root as Cringer, Diedrich Bader as King Randor and Trapjaw, Tiffany Smith as Andrea, which I guess is the black chick, I don't know. Henry Rollins as Triclops, Susan Eisenberg as the Sorceress, Jason Mewes as Stinkor, Phil Lamar as Hero, Tony Todd as Scareglow, and Cree Summer as Priestess. I have no idea who Priestess is. Kevin Michael Richardson as Beastman, and Harley Quinn Smith as Elena round out the cast. So, let me take a look at this other article I've got here. Maybe we can, let's see. This is from Entertainment Weekly online. We'll look at this one. Let's see. All right, Prince Adam He-Man, now voiced by Supergirl's Chris Wood, and Powerhouse Animation has updated the story set directly after events of the original piece of childhood entertainment. Everything I've worked on in like 27 years, this is easily the top 5 of my favorite, most satisfying projects, says Kevin Smith. When I die, they'll be like he made Clerks, remember? Because that's the most memorable thing I think I've ever done. I think this has a running shot at being like he made Clerks and that one cartoon at that one time. Split into 2 parts, with the 5 episodes of Part 1 premiering on Netflix this July 23rd. The show features, well, we already mentioned all the names of the actors. All right. And let's see. Smith remembers speaking with Netflix director of original series Ted Bicelli, who came with a childhood love of the sword and sorcery saga, sat in the writing room tossing out ideas. He said, "Do me a favor. When I used to watch the shows as a kid, I legitimately thought that He-Man was always on the verge of getting killed by Skeletor. I believed in the stakes. Just make me believe that again," he said. "People would see some of this as goofy IP, but this is a rich tapestry, a world full of characters. Please just don't talk down to it. Don't make fun of it. Don't wink. Just treat it like Shakespeare. Those were our marching orders." And again, that's what I mean. I hope they don't overcompensate for the fact that it's seen as a little goofy. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of people wanting to use He-Man for their own purposes, but I think deep down, everybody knows that they could tell some pretty strong stories with He-Man if they ever could get this property off the ground. Let's see. The first episode of Revelation begins in lockstep with the old show. Then about halfway through, things take a shift, which allows all the characters to go through these periods of growth. A cataclysmic event that would shake it up. The pair keep any further specifics about what the cataclysm is under lock and key, but Smith goes on to explain that only certain people knew the secret that Prince Adam is really He-Man. We build our entire story on who was left out of the secret and the damaging trickle-down effects of that. It's a story about a hero who has to live under deception in order to protect those he loves, but it's about how that deception rots at the core. David sees the story in Revelation in 2 acts, which is why Netflix is releasing the episodes in 2 parts. Part 1 felt like a really great act break, he said. You get to it and you're like, oh man, this is just dramatic. The game has changed. The characters at the beginning of Revelation are going to be very different than they will be at the end. That's what scares me. The devotion to the world of Masters of the Universe feels palpable. That extends to everyone involved. David shares fond memories of learning how to tell stories from playing with the toys growing up, while Smith, the kind of person who can speak about this material for hours, notes that composer Bear McCreary gave us a score that this show didn't even deserve. The showrunner also points to the cast. Hamill had talked about wanting to step out of animation, but he was like, when you came at me with Skeletor, how could I say no? He had a similar experience chatting with Headley. There was such fervency and love for the property. For David, becoming the best version of yourself has always been at the heart of He-Man, and it's true now of Revelation. We wanted to reiterate that, but make it even more broad. It's not just He-Man that has something special inside him, but every character and every viewer all have the power. All right, so just wrapping it up, some final thoughts here for me on this. I feel very much like we're in danger of doing the Last Jedi thing, the Superman Returns thing, where we leave the original classic stories and we come back and we kind of feel like we can do something better with it, that we can do something different. Like Superman's been gone for a long time now. Let's bring him back and let's say he's had a kid in that time. And he's all messed up now. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know his place in the world. His woman moved on, and they're raising his kid. It's like that was not something anybody who was a fan of the Superman Christopher Reeve films was wanting to see happen with those characters. I probably could waste more breath telling you about The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and how that also completely blew any goodwill anybody had for Star Wars. They completely took those characters, took them a step backwards. Nobody, and I mean nobody, who was a fan of the original classic trilogy expected to see Han and Leia estranged, Han going back to the smuggling racket in his 70s, Luke Skywalker, a cranky old man hiding out on an island, all these woke concepts being forced in. And I feel like that's basically where we're going now with He-Man. We're going to bring everybody back. We're going to break them down to their lowest. We're going to say, you know, He-Man's been hiding out. He can't be He-Man anymore. And Teela's going to try to bring the band back together. And Teela's got to grow up and realize that she's the real strength behind everything. Like in Bill and Ted, it was the daughters that were really the most important thing. And we have to, you know, we have to put everybody else on the shelf that had something important to say because we've got to get the woke points out. It just feels like it's going in that direction. So I don't know. Maybe if I hear some good things about it, I'll check it out. But again, I waited so long for some decent He-Man material. They did a pretty good version with a 2000 version. It was 2002 or 2003. And that was pretty good. You know, it was better than it wasn't. You know what I mean? There was more pluses than minuses. But still, I'm still waiting for that great He-Man property that is going to really shake us all up. Again, hoping this will be it. It doesn't look promising from where I'm standing right now. All right, I think I've kept you folks long enough. Thank you for your time. Let me know what you think about He-Man Revelations. Do you think it's going to go the way of, you know, the sequel trilogy, Star Wars, Superman Returns? What's going to happen? What are they going to do to ruin it? Or could they possibly pull something out with this one? I don't think so. I mean, like I said, I don't really have a lot of faith in Kevin Smith's abilities. He's going to mine that kind of, you know, that kind of getting the band back together drama that I don't think He-Man needs. And again, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You know, we know these characters. This is a direct sequel. There's no reason to sort of reinvent the wheel and try to tell us how He-Man has changed over the past 10 years and how Orko has changed and he's self-sufficient and Cringer's not even afraid anymore because he wants to be Battle Cat all the time. He's not going to be Cringer anymore. You know, just stick with the firm groundwork that was laid in the original Filmation series. Make it a little more mature if you must. I understand, because honestly, the Filmation show was kind of soft. I remember Paul Dini talking about this when he worked on the show, and he was like, a lot of the episodes are really soft. You know, it's about Orko adopts a baby dragon, or Cringer's afraid, and they have to face their problems, this, that. That was the kind of stuff that they were trying to teach kids, you know, 8-year-olds about in the 80s. But then, of course, the kids really were more gravitating towards Trapjaw flying around shooting a cannon and He-Man swinging a sword and, you know, clobbering Beastman. That's more what attracted the kids, but they had to have sort of an underlying message in it that made it, you know, worth showing your kids according to the, you know, standards and practices. So there you have it. Let me know what you think about He-Man, the, what is it, Netflix Masters of the Universe Revelations. And hopefully we will see you again next week on the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on the Johnnie Torch Live program. We'll try to bring you another program soon before you know it. But until next we meet, this is Johnnie Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.